everyone, and welcome. We still have a few empty seats. I'm very surprised at that. But thank you to all of you who have shown up. It's really appreciated. One reminder before we even get started. Please either turn off your phones or place them on silent. This will be out of respect for everyone involved because it's very distracting if someone's trying to, in the middle of speaking, and someone's phone goes off. So please place your phones on silent, and I hope I remember to do my own. To get started, I want to introduce our election committee. My name is Lou Ann Kent, and along with Leslie Young, we are the committee co-chairs. Santa Sterling and Steve Murray, along with Leslie, will be our rovers today, and we'll explain that in a minute about picking up questions. Marshall Adams is our timer today, down here in the front, and I'll be sitting with him, and together, hopefully, we can keep up with all the times. Merle Schwepke is our question reviewer, which I'll go over that shortly. Ron Capriotti is our moderator. I believe that's all our committee members today. And my thanks to all of the committee for all of the hard work they've done in preparing for this forum today. Candidates were briefed before our meeting, and they drew for seating position. And we will have our opening speeches and closing speeches in the order of seating. We also invite the audience to submit questions during the forum, and you have little cards, or if you need a card to write a question down, just hold up your hand and one of our rovers, we have rovers on each side of the floor, and you can get a card from them, or when you've completed your questions, you can hold it up, and they will be happy to pick up the cards. They will then hand any cards to our reviewer, Merle, and she'll go through them and she'll check for appropriateness and understanding and duplication, because very often we get duplicate questions, and then she'll group them together just to help with timing. In the first portion of our forum today, questions will be addressed to all of the candidates, and they'll be of various lengths. We then hope to take a few minutes breaks for our candidate, and for y'all too, just to stand up and stretch. And then in the second half, we'll be going through the audience questions. And if we run out of audience questions, we do have a few from past forums that we'll resort to. The candidates, like I say, there's various lengths, but typically in the random draws, they will have 2 minutes for their responses. And they will get a 30-second warning, and then they will also get a warning alert when their time is up. Marshall, could you demonstrate that sign? Now turn it around to what the audience will see. Now this, when you see that, applaud. Please applaud, and this will help remind our candidates that their time is up. A gentle reminder. We also avoid asking our candidates, we avoid asking a particular candidate a question. However, we have said that if we get, say, 10 questions about asking Joe Blow why he parts his hair on the right side, then we might be forced to ask that question. So we will take into consideration if there seems to be a strong concern. You know what I think we'll do now? I think we might meet the stars of our show. So, could we, starting with down this end, if each of the candidates, you could please introduce yourself by name only at this point. So if we could start down with David, please.
My name is Dave Bennett.
John Chatton.
Jack Ruzick.
Nick Turner.
Lou Mancuso.
John Schalk.
Dennis Hansel.
Sandra Forsey.
Ann Bagnell.
And unfortunately, Terry Burks, one of our candidates, could not be here this morning. So just so that you're aware, we do have a 10th candidate. And now at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, and we can get this show on the road. So Ron Capriotti.
Thank you, Lan. Good morning, everyone. What I'd like to start off with first is we have each of the candidates present an opening speech. We'll have them be 2 minutes per speech, and you will receive, as Luann said, a 30-second reminder during the course of that. And we'll start down on that end with David Bennett.
All right. I believe I have the education, experience, and knowledge to contribute to the running of Sun City West and make the hard decisions, balancing the wants versus the needs, keeping the member dues and APF affordable while maintaining our great facilities and quality of life. If elected, I promise to work hard to gather the necessary data to make this happen. Some of the data should be used to write, maintain, master, and strategic plans, not only for the next 5 years, but extending out 10 years and even 20 years into the future. We did not have a master plan or strategic plans under the former general manager. The current general manager is, they're in the process of doing that now. Some of the data that we need includes input from the owner members as to their interests, as well as their children and grandchildren if possible. We need statistics on the rising crime rates in the areas around Sun City West and how it affects us. We need space utilization data from all the clubs and facilities, personnel and payroll data, reserve fund control and preservation information. We need a new computer system that gathers and integrates all of the necessary data. A new IT director has been hired in the last 2 months, and that's a good step in the right direction. Please ask me about any of the information that I've given above.
30 seconds.
And I believe with this and other data, there can be solutions to the problems we have of keeping our member dues affordable. I'm currently on the Charter Club Committee, as well as I was on the working group that reviewed the RRMPs, which governing all the Charter Club's activities. I've attended many meetings over the last 2 years and finished the Torch Academy last semester.
Thank you.
Asking for your support, thank you.
Next we have John Shatton.
Yeah, I get the name right. That's good.
Sorry, John.
Do we have a Dan? I don't think so. Anyway, thank you. My name is John Chatton, and I would like to continue to serve on the Sun City West Recreation Board. I ran for the board last year because I believed I had some talents to contribute, and I had a desire to give back to my community. Although I came up 25 votes short, I was appointed to the board in September when Director Schlemmer resigned. That's when the reality struck. I was elected as the board secretary and appointed chair of the Chartered Clubs Committee. With degrees in accounting and organizational management and communication, almost 30 years of city and county management experience, and experience owning businesses and serving on several boards, I thought I would step in ready to add to the conversation. Well, you have to listen before you talk. So far, it has been a humbling experience. Being a good director and committee chair involves intensive study and deliberation. Doing the right thing isn't always so obvious, but I have kept an open mind while working with other directors, staff, and committee and community members to find the best solutions. The talent we have in our community is incredible. Many of them already serve on some of our various boards and committees. Some are here today. Our board has done a good job of keeping our community viable by maintaining our facilities, establishing healthy capital reserves, excuse me,
30 seconds.
and adopting workable budgets. But we continue to improve our community by listening to new ideas, participating in our strategic planning process, and considering any proposals that would enhance resident experience. And we must do all this while understanding the fiscal realities of our residents. Budgets need to meet current needs and provide for the future without burdening our residents. If elected, I will continue to serve Sun City West with an open mind to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Jack Ruzick.
Good morning. I'm probably the newest member of this group, and I look around, most of them have been here for a while. As far as running for the organization, I have not. I've been a member of Sun City West for the past 6 years. I'm a member of the softball group and the Sun City West posse. So I have a little experience in running around the neighborhoods and talking to people and seeing exactly what they want. I'm not as concerned about what the board wants as I am you, the residents. The residents make up this organization. They pay dues. They buy homes here. And I've noticed lately that the dues are getting to be pretty expensive. And the APF, of course, has gone up considerably. I've been here 6 years. The APF on my house has gone up over $1,700. I'm a little concerned about that. Where do we stop? Where does it go? And I realize that we have capital projects that need to be done, renovations need to be done, but there's a point of no return, and that's what I am concerned with. We hire more and more personnel, I noticed, and we have a lot of issues there. We seem to trade a lot of personnel, and that kind of bothers me too. So anyway, I'm asking for your vote. I don't take 2 minutes. I'm asking for your vote, and I want to be part of your organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Nick Turner.
Good morning. My name is Nick Turner. Sun City West is undeniably a beautiful adult community with a diverse range of clubs and activities. We all have a lot invested in our individual properties, so of course we want to preserve and protect it now and into the future. We all want it to thrive as the best retirement community in the country. Therefore, it's important that we maintain the integrity of our facilities while operating within a reasonable budget. And on this, I think we're all in agreement. One question I'm often asked is, what have you done for our community? Well, I'm currently in my 3rd year as a member of the Chartered Clubs Committee. I serve as the liaison for various sports clubs. I'm the president of the Johnson Lawn Bowls Club and secretary of the Contract Bridge Club. Last year, I chaired a working group that identified the software requirements for measuring space utilization. I consistently attend governing board and committee meetings, and I'm keenly aware of the relevant issues with which each is dealing. I understand the detail of our expenses and keep track of possible savings that might be explored. It's my priority to stay abreast of current and upcoming issues likely to affect our residents and clubs. I'm noted as being meticulously prepared for meetings. It's my practice to focus on root causes, not symptoms. These qualities are going to contribute to better decision-making for us all. I have no personal agenda, and I will not privilege one club or group over another. If elected, I continue to promise my commitment to the health and happiness of our community. I will continue to examine our budget to verify that our money is being spent wisely and ensure we invest to make our operations more efficient in the future. So thank you for considering me for the governing board.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Nick Mancuso.
It's Lou Mancuso, but
I'm
that's
sorry, Lou.
okay. A point of order. Typically, we start meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance. If we could, I would appreciate it if everybody would stand if you're able to, and please say the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And thank all the veterans. Yeah, I already have 30 seconds in, right? Good morning. First of all, thanks for attending. My name's Lou Mancuso, and I have been a full-time Sun City West resident since 2007. I've been involved with the governance of Sun City West since 2012, starting as a member of the Bowling Committee, now the Sports Pavilion Committee, then serving on the Long Range Planning Committee and the Budget and Finance Committee. I've been the president of the Lapidary Club and the vice president of the Boomers Club. I was elected to the governing board in 2021. However, due to my challenge of the establishment, unfortunately, I was recalled. I'm asking for your vote so that I can represent our community as a governing board member to ensure our facilities, clubs, and community are safe, fiscally sound, and are meeting the needs of our changing demographics. Ensure our golf courses remain as high-quality courses at a reasonable price. Work with our information technology department to continue expanding our technology footprint. One area that I believe needs review is wage, salary, and benefit costs, which are 63% of all expenses of our community. The increase from FY 21-22 to FY 24-25 budget is $4.2 million, a 28% increase. Recently, the Rec Center News stated that a person was retiring and will be replaced with
30
two
seconds.
staff members. Although these staff replacements and costs may be valid, I believe a review of this will validate or show an area that needs to be addressed. In closing, I am Lou Mancuso. I am asking for your vote so I can represent you as a governing board director. I am also asking that you vote for other candidates who believe, as I do, a fiscal conservative in overseeing spending of our community. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from John Schalk.
Hi, my name is John Schalk. I'm running for the Sun City West Governing Board, and I need your vote. I was born and raised in Chicago and became familiar with Sun City West communities as a youth when I made my annual visits to my grandfather, who retired in Sun City in the late 60s. I knew where I wanted to live when I retired at an early age. After graduating from high school, I attended Eastern Illinois University, majoring in accounting. I worked for the electric utility in Illinois for 37 years, spending most of my time out at the nuclear power plants. While working, I achieved corporate goals and cut costs for the department. After I retired, I moved to Sun City West in 2017. Since moving here, I have served on 4 separate clubs on the boards, currently serving on 2 boards, which I may have to give up when elected to the governing board. As a member of the governing board of Sun City West, I want to ensure that the board oversees management operations as associated bylaws require. In my role, I will see that assets are preserved and all facilities are being maintained. I look forward with helping provide the best service at the lowest cost to our annual dues as possible. It is very concerning to me that annual dues are increasing at the current rate. Sun City West is a great place to be, and I want to continue making it a desirable place to live. The changing demographic of Sun City West needs could be different than what we have now. We have 7 beautiful golf courses here, and I would like to keep them that
30
way.
seconds.
I don't play golf myself, but they are essential to our community. There is always talk of reducing the number of clubs we have. Isn't that one of the reasons why we moved here? For the activities and fun things to do? The clubs are a very important part of Sun City West. Pickleball, tennis are very popular activities that keep us fit. We are blessed to have them available to us. I would like to keep Sun City West a fun, safe place to live. Help me manage Sun City West better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Dennis Hansel.
Good morning. My name is Dennis Hansel. I was born and raised in Ohio, and am privileged to have been raised by 2 members of the greatest generation. I attended college in Ohio and majored in accounting. After I graduated from college, I worked for a national accounting firm where I became a certified public accountant in the state of Ohio. I left public accounting to work for the Internal Revenue Service as a special agent in the criminal division, where I served for almost 29 years. I earned a Distinguished Graduate Award in my criminal investigator training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. As a special agent, I conducted financial investigations involving individuals and businesses. During my years with the IRS, I attended law school at night and graduated after a 4-year program. After finishing law school, I passed the bar, but did not practice law until I retired from public service. As a collateral duty while I worked for the government, I served as a guest instructor at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. I taught classes on relevant criminal statutes and investigative techniques to new and experienced agents. I also moonlighted as an adjunct faculty member at Ohio Community College, where I taught accounting courses for 4 years. After retiring from the IRS in 2006, I practiced law. I've represented individuals and businesses in civil and criminal matters. I have conducted forensic audits of various nonprofit entities. I have served on the board of a Boys and Girls Club in Columbus, Ohio, and have served as a president of the 501c3 organization. In 2009, I purchased a home in Sun City West. In 2022, I became interested in learning about the governance and finances of the recreation centers of Sun City West. I attended the Sun City West Torch Academy and served a one-year term on the Sun City West Golf Committee. I believe my education and work experience makes me uniquely qualified to be an effective member of the governing board. Recreation centers of Sun City West needs to be more run like a business while meeting the expectations of the residents. If elected, I intend to focus my time on exploring avenues to keep costs in check so as to get the most out of our dues. As a director, I will never forget that I represent the residents of Sun City West and will make recommendations that are in best interest of the entire Sun City West community. I want the community to feel like they are being heard, and I encourage residents to get involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Sandra Forsey.
Good morning. I have been here. We purchased a house in 2019, took about a year to remodel it to the way we wanted it. I love Sun City West. When our oldest daughter came to visit, I took her just a little walk around Sun City West, and she goes, "Mom, I don't know why everybody doesn't live here." You know, and that coupled with, we have 3 adult children. Each one of them are being really nice because they want to inherit the house here. So focusing on the future is an important thing to me. Right after I moved here, I got actively involved in each Silvercraft and Water Fitness. I was a little bit worried after I retired that I wouldn't have enough to do with my time. And I thought I was special because Silver Club wanted me to be vice president. And then I find out they do that to all the new people. But it's been a great learning curve. I was president of Water Fitness. Silver Club and Water Fitness are very different with each other. I enjoyed both and the things that I learned. Most of the time I get all the things I want to know off Facebook. No, that's one thing that I've got a very strong business in my background, and I've always been successful. But when I read
30
things,
seconds.
I worry what's true, what's not. So I research. Wages have been one of them. We only pay 87% of the norm compared to other places for people. I think I'm done.
Thank you. Now we will hear from Ann Becknell.
Thank you, Ron. My name is Ann Becknell. My husband John and I started as snowbirds here in 2008 and became full-time residents in 2013. But we have been enjoying Sun City West for more than 30 years. When my parents came here from Kansas to snowbird one winter and just never came back. My father told me that when they turned off of Bell Road onto R.H. Johnson, he heard the angels sing and the harps play, and he knew it was going to be his forever home, along with the fact that my mother told him so. I've had the opportunity to watch Sun City grow over the past 30 years and personally seen the community and know that it's one of the greatest volunteer communities anywhere, and I'm proud to be part of that. In my personal and professional life, I was fortunate to spend 5 decades with some remarkable people in the finance and software technology market, designing, building, and implementing technology that we implemented worldwide. Together, we accomplished some amazing things through great teamwork, integrity, and honesty. My grandmother always said, "You were born with 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them accordingly." Words of wisdom that I think will play well for anybody on the governing board. Since coming to Sun City West, I have enjoyed many of the clubs and held a variety of positions with the clubs, either as a party planner, a vice president, a president with Water Fitness, Lady Putters. I've worked with Torch, and it's just been a remarkable experience to be part of the volunteer. I'm running for Sun City West Governing Board to maintain the excellent standards that we have enjoyed in the past and safeguard the growth and the future of Sun City West. Simply put, I am focused on the future and I want your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will move into a series of short questions, and we will pick one name. That candidate will start with them, and then we'll move to stage left in order at that point. So we will start with Lou Mancuso on this. And the question is, respond with a yes or no, I'm sorry, a little bit of preview. We are starting with questions that were submitted by the election committee and community members in advance of the forum. So that we had these coming in here. The question is, respond with a yes or no only answer. Have you attended or are you currently enrolled in Torch?
Yes, I attended Torch.
Nick?
Yes, I attended Torch about 2 years ago.
Jack?
I am currently enrolled in Torch.
Yeah.
I attended Torch probably 5 years ago.
I graduated from Torch last session.
Ann?
I graduated from Torch, and I participate in Torch every 6 months, twice a year.
Sandra?
I graduated with honors from Torch.
Dennis?
I attended Torch in the fall of 2022.
John?
I am not involved in Torch.
Thank you. Our next question is also going to be a yes or no answer. And the question is this: do you consider Sun City West to be financially sound? We'll start with John Chatton.
Unequivocally,
It's a yes or no
yes.
question.
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
Dennis? I do.
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
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 And Nick?
Sorry, yes.
And Jack?
Yes.
Okay. Next question is, give one short example of what you consider to be wasteful spending in Sun City West. Start with Nick Turner.
Well, one example I can think of, and I think from what I've heard from the membership here is, I think many would agree, is the $225,000 for the redevelopment of Lizard Acres.
Thank you. Jack?
I think the only thing I can think of is that the paving and repaving of the R.H. Johnson parking lot.
Thank you. John?
I can't tell you anything that I believe is wasteful. I think every dollar that we spend goes through budget and finance. It goes through the board. It is looked at very carefully before any money is
Thank you.
spent.
David?
I believe that it's the wants versus needs. It's not necessarily wasteful, but I believe they're spending on several things that are not necessarily needs. The Lizard Acres was one of them.
Thank you. Ann?
I agree with what John said. I think that the Budget and Finance Committee does an absolutely fantastic job in monitoring the expenditures and overseeing how we spend our money.
Thank you. Sandra?
I too agree with what John has said. It's been interesting for me to kind of dive a little deeper and see what the statistics are and what is reality. They have been very good at managing.
Thank you. Dennis?
In the recent past, the association spent $40,000 for an engineering study to expand the library, when in fact, neither the board nor anybody else considered that expenditure.
Thank you. John?
I also agree that the repaving of the parking lot. A number of years ago, we had new signs put up all over. We've been here 40 years, and all of a sudden, we needed new signs by all the golf courses. I thought that was a waste.
Thank you. And Lou?
I always concentrate on wages, salaries, and benefits that represent 63% of all of our expenses. I believe there may be some duplicity in staff. An analysis would need to be done, and then a determination made. Thank you.
All right. Our next question, our last question of this type, in one sentence, If you were to select one area that Sun City West should invest additional financial resources, where would it be? For this, we'll start with John Chatton.
We need to invest in additional meeting space. We're maxed out.
David.
We need to do utilization because the club, there's not enough room for all of the club's needs, expansion.
Ann?
We need to overhaul our technology infrastructure and make sure that all the systems communicate with each other and communicate better with the charter clubs.
Thank you. Sandra?
Mine was a combination of technology and also space utilization. It's difficult for one club to have to give up part of theirs because another club legitimately needs it, and I just think, look at that.
Thank you. Dennis?
We need to hire a different investment firm. The one we currently have has cost us millions.
John?
Some of the clubs are getting old looking inside. They need to be refurbished.
Thank you. These next series of questions will be, I'm sorry.
Ron, you didn't want me to answer?
I'm sorry. I beg your pardon.
Well, I agree that, there are areas that need to be addressed. Once again, I'm always stuck on wages, salaries, and benefits. So if there's an area that I believe needs to be analyzed, it is that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick?
Information technology. What we have works and is supported well, but it's not built for the future. It's old and showing its age. If we are going to have more efficiencies in staffing and other areas, then we need better IT.
Thank you.
I believe it's our recreational areas more than anything. This is a very health-minded community. We need additional pickleball courts. We need to upgrade the softball fields. We also, I agree with John, we need to upgrade the space for meetings.
Thank you. This next section will be, you'll be allowed 30 seconds to answer. And again, we'll draw one name here and move, and I guess I said left, but we've been moving right. So, and again, I apologize for some of these errors that I've been making. First question. What do you understand to be the Sun City West Rec Center's duty to its members? I'll repeat the question. What do you understand to be the Sun City West Rec Center's duty to its members? We'll start with Nick Turner.
It is to promote and provide the facilities for the enjoyment and use of the membership. It's to make sure that the facilities are working, that they're maintained, and that they are safe. But primarily they're here for the the health and enjoyment of the membership. It's to provide activities and facilities and make sure they're maintained, well supported, and functional.
Thank you.
I think he just mirrored what I said on the last question, but it's also, I don't think we do a real good job of listening to our members. I'm all about members. Members put us in office. Members make sure that we keep on our toes as boards of directors and as just citizens. If we don't do that, if we don't listen to the members, we haven't accomplished a bloody thing.
John?
Yeah, I think our duty is to provide safe facilities as directed by our residents to provide what they want, not necessarily what we want, and to provide good governance, which is oftentimes more difficult than it seems.
David?
I agree that we need to get input, the data from the members, also from their children and grandchildren, because this bubble, there's only 17,000 houses, 29,000 people, and the demographics change, and we need to, but they need to provide and maintain the quality, life, and health, and all the activities that caused us to move here, and maintain those facilities in a conscientious way to try to maintain our dues, APF at a stable.
Thank you. Ann?
I believe that it's our job to make sure that all the facilities are clean and safe and up to date as they should be. I think that whether it's something as small as the dog park or as big as the golf course, everything needs to be given the right and proper consideration.
Thank you. Sandra?
I appreciate actually how Sun City West has managed the finances. If you wanted to contrast it with Sun City, they're in a world of hurt, and I appreciate the continual updates, maintenance. Sometimes you look around and you don't realize a person did this. We just look around and maybe find what's wrong.
Thank you. Dennis?
I think we should ensure that there's efficiency of management operations. We should ensure that there's fiscal soundness. We should ensure that there's transparency in our organization. And finally, we should listen to residents concerning all matters facing the association. Thank you.
John?
The rec center's responsibility is to make sure the facilities, clubs, everything's up to date and safe. Some of the clubs have dangerous equipment in there, and safety is a big concern as we get older. We're not at the same awareness as we used to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou?
Well, I agree with everybody, being the last person to speak here. Certainly it's membership services, certainly it's facility, and certainly it's safety. But the one thing that drives that is our financial stability. So the number one thing I believe that the rec center is responsible for is financial stability, that of course being the reserve fund, dues, asset preservation fees, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will be also 30 seconds, and the question is, what is your motivation to serve on the governing board? We'll start with John Schalk.
Looking at the financial stability of Sun City West and where the money gets spent is a very important part. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Lou.
Would you repeat the question?
Certainly. The question is, what is your motivation to serve on the governing board?
Well, I guess service to the community. I've been a long-time resident. I've been involved with several clubs. So my motivation is to serve and to look at the efficiency of the rec center. And I guess lastly, to advise the community that it is not just the rec centers in Sun City West. We have the community fund, we have PURA, we have the prides, et cetera. So I believe that the rec center would better serve the community by advising the community about everything that is included in Sun City West. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick?
I love it here. I like it. There's lots to do. I thought when I moved here that I'd join about 15 clubs. I don't actually have time to do that. I love it here. But I want to keep it like this. I want to make sure that it stays good and the best for generations to come. That's why I'm running. I believe we actually get good value for money here. And I want to keep it like this. I want to keep it looking beautiful. I want to keep the facilities safe. And I want some of our facilities are top class. I want to keep them that way.
Jack?
I'm all about members, as I've already said 2 or 3 times. What I'm really concerned with, though, is new people trying to get in here. We have an APF that goes up constantly, and pretty soon our realtors are going to have trouble selling homes here. That APF is getting up over 5,200, and it's going up at a rate of 3% per year. Dues are going up at the rate of 4% per year. Yes, I realize we have to be fiscally responsible, and we want to keep everybody in this area safe, but somehow, some way, we've got to curb the expenses.
Thank you. John?
Well, we moved here in 2015, and after a certain amount of time, you start to wonder whether you should be volunteering for something or get a job, because you can't belong to every single club, and I can only golf 3-4 times a week. So I had a desire to give back, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought my background in city and county administration and organizational management, that the board would be a good fit. And most of all, as Nick said, because we love it here.
Thank you. David?
What got me involved was actually bullying in softball that nothing happened about. Then they did away with commingling, and I was at many meetings at the podium with my 2 minutes trying to get that back. Then the $4 million loss in the reserve fund and the lack of long-range plan, master plan, and strategic plans. All of those, I was involved in so many things. I'm on the charter committee. So.
Thank you. Ann?
I've been involved with many of the charter clubs here in Sun City West, but it was actually when I joined the Torch Committee, and I've gone through 4 years. I'm on my 8th session of Torch right now, and I continue to learn something new about the community all the time, even after 8 sessions. So Torch is what motivated me to want to get more involved at a deeper level with the governing board.
Thank you. Sandra?
I've always been a person that likes to leave things better than maybe I found them. I'm very good at analyzing. I'm very good at digging deep. I'm very good at being impartial when I weigh things. I'm a good listener, and that's what I think sometimes we need more of, is just that dig a little deeper and get the facts.
Thank you. Dennis?
If someone wanted to obtain a fundamental understanding about any business entity, the individual should question the CPA or the attorney. I have spent my entire professional career analyzing financial and legal issues, and I will use this experience to enhance the preservation of the association. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Our next section of questions, the candidates will be allowed 1 minute to respond. And the first question is, tell us how you will respond in situations when your opinion is different than the majority of the governing board. I'll repeat that. Tell us how you will respond in situations when your opinion is different than the majority of the governing board. And we will start with Jack Ruzick.
Thank you. Well, I've been a businessman for 44 years, and one thing I learned about employees, sometimes they're right. And so I have learned a lot of times that I have to back down and make sure that I listen and understand what's going on, rather than just expound upon my own theories and pushing it down somebody's throat. I found out that never, ever works, and that's how I would handle it.
Thank you. John Chanton.
Well, I have disagreed with several things that have happened on the board, and I am not ashamed to express my disagreement, but I do it respectfully. I think the reason we have 9 people on the board is everyone has an opinion, and we need to listen to everybody. We need to listen to residents, listen to other board members.
Thank you. David?
Well, after being married 53 years, and my wife thinks that I think that I'm always right, I found out the hard way that that's my opinion isn't always the right one. And so I do listen. I have the scars to prove the times that I don't. And I would stand up for my position, but I also listen. And if somebody can convince me, or if I can convince people, that's the attitude I would hold. There's no grudges, no. It was like commingling. They took it away. It's no longer a viable alternative, and so I just gave up on that. And the other side, I respect their positions, And I intend to do the same, to be respectful, listen, and stand up for my positions, and thanks.
Thank you. Ann?
Thank you. After being in business for almost 5 decades and developing software technology that we implemented primarily for law firms all around the world, I was always proud to say that I never got sued one time in all those decades. But that's because we always work together in a collaborative way with teamwork and respect. And I think when you do that and you collaborate and you show respect for other people's opinions, you get things accomplished.
Thank you. Sandra?
I think that, for one thing, I've attended enough meetings to see that a lot of thought and debate goes in before a board all vote. And there's 9 people voting, and 9 people very often have different ideas. So if I ever ran on the side that I still didn't agree with what, I would still support the majority, because I don't want a divisive board. I want unification in Sun City West, and I still would just support it.
Thank you. Dennis?
First of all decisions should be data-driven, and I will attempt to persuade, but also listen to other members. As a member of the Golf Committee, I challenged management and other committee members, but acquiesced to the outcome even though I did not always agree.
Thank you. John?
I would hope to get feedback from the residents as they live here. This is part of their community. I certainly wouldn't want to be a dictator, and that's how I would base my decisions.
Thank you. Lou?
The first thing I would do is ask for reasonable dialogue regarding the issue. Secondly, I would ask for respectful disagreement, but ultimately it becomes a matter of consensus of the members of the board to determine what the final decision is. And lastly, I would ask everyone to support the decision, whether you're in agreement or in disagreement with the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick?
I would represent the collective decision of the governing board, and it's actually something I've already had to do, not as a governing board member, but as a member of the Chartered Clubs Committee. I'm a liaison for sports clubs. I have to meet with the board of those sports clubs and represent the policy and the policies and so on of the governing board and the Chartered Clubs Committee, whether I agree with them or not. I was the chair of the working group recently on the updates to the RRMPs. I had to stand at that podium and present the consensus view of the working group and the Chartered Clubs Committee, even though I did not personally agree with some of the changes that were made. I'm already doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, and again for everybody, you will have 1 minute to respond. And the question is, have you served on a policy setting board before? If so, describe your experiences and contributions. If not, describe what you do foresee as your contribution. Let me repeat that again. Have you served on a policy setting board before? If so, describe your experiences and contributions. If not, describe what you do foresee as your contribution. And we'll start with David Bennett.
I served for 28 years in a small S corporation laboratory. I was the vice president secretary during that entire, and a director during that entire time. We started out with 3 people, ended up with 35 after 28 years. And we had very tough decisions from time to time. We had to, as a stockholder, we had to come up with money out of our pockets sometimes to buy a new phone system. We had to make payroll every week. We had to buy expensive equipment. And over those 28 years, I served in all kinds of capacities, running a business. And I think that qualifies me to contribute to the governing board of Sun City West.
Thank you. Ann?
In my personal professional background, obviously I dealt with a lot of policy issues and design, which I thought really prepared me well when I took on a position as vice president or president at some of the clubs here in Sun City West, but I was really wrong, because you get so many views from so many people from so many different age groups, and so it's important to make sure that you look at your entire demographic of issues and things that you're trying to build policy around and take the best interest of the entire membership of your groups together.
Thank you. Sandra?
The most recent would have been probably in Silvercraft, even though we redid the bylaws both in Silvercraft and Water Fitness. Silvercraft was much more intricate, including we worked through a remodel plan to get submitted to the board. But just the passing around of the bylaws to house this and house that, that was good. And it just taught me too, or reminded me, that everybody has some good ideas. Some people's ideas aren't very good, but you know, it just taught me very much about listening to everyone, because sometimes there'd be something pointed out and I think, oh, I
30
hadn't even
seconds.
thought of that.
Thank you. Dennis?
I served on the golf committee here, and in my second meeting, I reviewed some documentation I received that showed 3 of our 7 golf courses have 20% less play than the remaining 4. I asked the question then, what can we do to increase the amount of play of those 3 courses to the level of the other 4? I asked it 2 times, and in a meeting this fall, I looked at the same data. I'm still asking that question, and I'm prepared to provide solutions to generate more revenue for this association.
Thank you. John?
I have served on 4 different boards since moving to Sun City West. Currently, I'm on 2 boards, working through budgets and maintaining the facility in the clubs at the level that the club members expect. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou?
Thanks for the question. I sat on the Boeing Committee, which is now the Sports Pavilion Committee, and I believe we rewrote most of the policies for the Sports Pavilion. Other areas, I was the secretary of the New Jersey Public Employee Managers Association, and we had to develop policy statewide for 21 different departments. Lastly, I was the Chief Information Officer of the New Jersey Department Office of Information Technology. It was a new office. We had to create policy from the ground up. So we had to take into consideration employees' needs, were there any government mandates or any other organizations, so that we could craft our policies to be reasonable and that they would be able to be complied with. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick?
In my past life in business, I was a software product manager for a large tech company, and that involved working across multiple organizations across multiple countries. And in order to do that, you need to establish set ways of working, establish goals, targets, the what it is that people need to do. And that's what policy making is. It's saying the what. The how you can leave to the local people on the ground. So it's a matter of having the right amount of moving into and how much interference do you want to do on the ground and how much guidance do you want to provide in terms of policy, in terms of this is what you're achieving, are you going about achieving it in the right way? And finally, as a member of the Charter Clubs Committee, it's that club's duty to review, if you like, the policies for charter clubs, which are in fact the RRMPs. And so I've been involved in that process for the 3 years that I've been on the Charter Clubs Committee. So I'm already, if you like, reviewing policy here.
Thank you.
Having been in business, like I said, for 44 years, I belonged to a lot of organizations that supported the industry that I was in. And by the way, I was strictly in the healthcare facilities type business. And with Healthcare Financial Management Association, which is a large national organization, we set policies that affected all of the hospital's finance side and all the CFOs were part of that organization. So we had to set a lot of policies to make certain that things were carried out adequately and honestly, which, believe it or not, wasn't always the case. But and policies again for my own company. I had 5 companies, and I had to set policies for all 5. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Well, as a city or county manager, I spent most of my time kind of guiding the policymakers, not making policy. So that was a little different. But I was also the president of a small chamber of commerce where we set policy for all the retail businesses. I was appointed by the city of Bemidji to Race Relations Council. I was their representative, where we dealt with set policy for how we were going to deal with the 3 surrounding Native communities that we had there.
30 seconds.
Involving, we developed a curriculum to teach schools and business people the history of, the Native history for that area. And most recently, obviously, I've been on the Sun City West board now for about 8 months, so I've been involved with setting policy on the board.
Thank you. Our next question, considering the work that has been done by the Budget and Finance Committee regarding investment strategies, what are your thoughts? I'll repeat. Considering the work that has been done by the Budget and Finance Committee regarding investment strategies, what are your thoughts? We'll start with Nick Turner.
I assume this means something of the more recent activities of the working group that is partway through its work on the investment strategy. They've been looking at the reserve fund. They've been modeling out what happens if we change that strategy from a 90% value retention down to 70% value retention and moving some of it into more in stocks and shares instead of bonds. And it's interesting work. The amount of money that comes into the reserve fund from the annual dues every year and the amount of money which comes in from the asset preservation fees every year funds the majority of our capital expenditure. That means that the reserve fund doesn't have to supply much every year, which means it can have a higher risk tolerance. And if we do have a higher risk tolerance, we're probably going to be able to add more into the reserve fund, and that in the future is going to be able to fund more developments here and maybe have some more expansion.
Thank you. Jack?
Yeah, I think it's the same situation. If you continue to maintain your 90-10 split, as Nick was telling you, you're going to go backwards. And if you keep going backwards, you're going to have to keep raising dues and the APF, which I find just absolutely abhorrent. I see no reason to continue to do that. We're going to price ourselves right out of the marketplace for people coming into this community. The 70-10, 70-30 split he's talking about, we had a presentation from a lady that I found absolutely fascinating. She was right on. Money will be increased if you do the split 70-30, not 90-10. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Well, I think the Budget and Finance and their committee to look at our investment strategy has done an incredible amount of work, and there are some extremely bright people on that committee. Their work is not done yet. They're still looking at what is going to be the best option for us. I think we have to bear in mind our policy looks at safety, security, and liquidity as some of the most important things for our investment. So yes, a 70-30 would put more money into the stock market and potentially make more, but you'd only want the money that you need for a very long term, not for another 10, 15, 20 years there, because you can't risk the losses. So we will wait and see.
Thank you. David?
I agree that the budget finance it was a wonderful presentation. And under normal conditions, a 30-70 split is good in long-term investments to return to get a return more than inflation so that you don't lose any ground in that area. However, then we need wise investments. Since 2022, when they lost $4 million, I don't think they've been keeping up with inflation because they've had to sell a couple of bonds that had not rebounded yet, and one transaction lost $600,000. The other one, and I understand there's some other transactions that also lost money. So we need to make sure that the investments do not risk capital, especially on short-term money.
Thank you. Ann?
Thank you. I agree very much with what my prior candidates had remarked on, that the 70-30 split is a great idea. Today's 90-10 split is far too conservative for us to see the kind of growth that we need to do. I also think that the investment strategy of how they make that breakdown is going to be very important, and that's going to be something that the Budget and Finance Committee has to spend a great deal of time understanding before they make that split complete.
Thank you. Sandra?
You know, I have been, just like, I assume we've all kind of been following the same thing. And anybody that had a lot of bonds, which we were by our bylaws required not to keep things really conservative, 90%, bonds just didn't do anything. People got killed, you know, to where it was so refreshing to have the Budget and Finance Committee relook at everything and to come up with the 70-30, and then to have Cap Trust come and do the presentation that they did, you know, because Cap Trust's hands would have been locked too, because we have to stay a certain way. And I appreciate the time that's gone in to the people that serve our community, that make educated decisions.
This topic deserves more than a minute, but let me just say briefly, our current policy has a preamble that says we need to make conservative investments. The first and foremost consideration is the preservation of capital. What that means, I'll translate that for you. We cannot invest in investments that risk capital. And what happened, 100% of our investments risk capital. Okay? So we're already involved in a risky situation. All right? And in terms of 30%, well, we're already at 100%. So we're talking 30% and 70%. And how are we going to achieve that 30%? Are we going to sell what we have at a loss of $3 million, which is what we're facing today? There's a whole lot of work that needs to be done. And the first thing to do is to change the policy if that's the direction we want to go.
Thank you. John?
We have, what, $29–30 million in the reserve fund today. I would not put it in a high risk and risk losing more money. In the last 3 years with that investment, we lost several $1 million where we should have been making money. That really needs to be taken a conservative approach on where we stick our money and how we grow it.
Thank you. Lou?
If I were king, I would have for year 1 through year 5, I would have no investments in anything other than guaranteed return, such as CDs, treasuries, and money market. They would be laddered. Therefore, you would never lose money in the first 5 years. In the 6 to 10 year term, I would have a moderate risk, such as bond funds. And in year 11 through 20, I would have
30 seconds.
a more aggressive stance. So I don't disagree with the 30-70. It's when does the 30-70 come into play? I would think it would come into play in the 11 to 20 year investment strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Thank you.
It's painless.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're going to start the second portion of the forum here. This next question, the candidates will be allowed a 2-minute response, and I will read the question twice. This question was the top topic submitted by our online platform. You will be allowed up to 2 minutes for your response, and order of response will be by random draw. The question reads, do you think that dues and/or asset prevention fees should be decreased or eliminated? If decreases occur, how would you go about balancing, maintaining, or updating the community? Let me read that again. Do you think that dues and/or asset prevention fees should be decreased or eliminated? If decreases occur, how would you go about balancing, maintaining, or updating the community? And we'll start this off with Lou Mancuso.
Well, I'm glad to be number one again. I don't think that dues and APF fees should be reduced. That is, there are only sources of income, right? The majority of our income comes from dues, and then golf, and then bowling. And so it's dues, asset preservation fees, golf, bowling, and then other ancillary income. So they should definitely not be reduced. However, I do believe through analysis, we may be able to look at areas where we can reduce costs, which may in fact either stabilize dues or reduce the increase to dues and asset preservation fees. There is inflation. We as individuals realize that costs go up for us. Some of them are mandated, such as the minimum wage increase. So definitely, we definitely need dues and asset preservation fees. To the extent we can minimize the increases through efficiencies, it would benefit our community. We need to remember that in our zip code, 7% of the population is below the federal poverty level. So there's a few people in our community that struggle with the higher dues. So once again, in summary, I would say that we cannot eliminate them, but to the extent possible, we should mitigate them. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from David Bennett.
I do not think that they can't be eliminated and still maintain the facilities. I think, again, with enough data and hard looking into the spending, that there will be places where we can save. As it is with them redoing golf courses, it'll to save water, it's going to take the rest of a 10-year plan, and during that time, the current membership dues and APF pay for 91% of the yearly expenses. They said once that 10 years is up, then those same dues and fees would pay 110%. So it looks like that there should be a way to stabilize and not have as necessarily an automatic 4% increase in membership dues every year and a 3% in the APF. Again, I can see where those kind of things can cause problems to reselling houses, and we just need to be able to enjoy what we have here, the
30 seconds.
Quality of life. But I do believe with enough data, there's solutions to the problems of at least stabilizing or eliminating 4% increases every year to make it affordable to people that live here. And I agree with I know that the 7% people in the poverty level, and I think there should be something to do with get people to be able to opt out on a case-by-case basis if they can't afford to live here and pay their dues. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from John Schalk.
The dues and asset preservation fees cannot be eliminated. We wouldn't financially survive. But we can look at some cost reductions and some synergies to reduce the expenses. The reserve fund has not been performing as it should. If you have $29 million sitting there and you invest it properly, you should be getting at least $1 million a year in return, minimum 4% a year, if not more. So that fund hasn't been handled properly, I think. The dues, it's been going up faster than I think it should, but so is costs and the minimum wage. Inflation has been bad in the last few years, so there's not much you can do about inflation, and we have to pay our employees. But you can look at some cost cutting and some efficiencies that may slow the dues increasing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Sandra Forsey.
I think that, there's a leg there. To me, maybe we should even look about income generating. When you figure that absolutely they should not decrease. 15 years over the average is 3.5% a year. Calculate in minimum wage changes, calculate in inflation, and you'll see it's really minimally that they have increased. I also think maybe if you looked at a little bit of income generating, like our golf brings, I think it's 2.2 million to the bottom line for us. I mean, that's good. They're the second highest next to dues. Pickleball is so popular. You know, if it could ever, it would take a lot of doing, but maybe that would be something to where it begins to function like the golf courses, to where people could come and pay money to play pickleball for an hour. I don't know. I just think there's things to investigate without cutting our nose off.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from John Chatton.
What are you paying less for? Are you paying less for anything right now? Everything's going up. Inflation is a real factor in our lives, and it's a factor for the Sun City West budget also. I think we can't eliminate dues or APFs. We can do our best to minimize the increases. And there are some ways that we can have some savings in our budget to try and hold the line on dues and APFs. But if you want to go further than that, then you have to decide, what do you want to eliminate? You want to get rid of one of the rec centers? That'd save a few $1 million. You want to get rid of a golf course? That probably wouldn't save a few $1 million. It would promote lawsuits from the people who live on that golf course. I mean, there really aren't a lot of good choices outside of doing our best to look at what we are spending money on and try and do our best to minimize any increases that we have.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Ann Bicknell.
Thank you. I think that the dues and asset preservation fees are an absolute must. I don't think you can take them away. I do think that there are a lot of things that can be done. I agree with Sandra that the income generation idea is a good idea. There's a lot of opportunities in our community where we could do that. And there's also a lot of organizations that provide nonprofit fundraising and make donations back to various organizations in the community that help out quite a bit for those people that are living under the poverty level and need assistance. So I think the most important thing would be to very carefully evaluate how you're spending the money, make sure that we're making the right decisions, not just the want but the need, and to spend that money accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Dennis Hansel.
Thank you. I think we look at dues, golf, and APF fees as being the primary generators of income. I was on the golf committee because I wanted to be able to interact and look into ways we can generate additional income. I previously mentioned that 3 of our 7 courses have 20% less play than the other 4. So if we had dynamic pricing and gave the director of golf the opportunity to change prices for members at a short time period, perhaps we can generate the additional revenue, which may not precipitate the need for dues increases. And I am never surprised by the lack of imagination. Okay, in addition to golf, the softball field sold the scoreboard had $50,000 expenditure. Okay, it was paid for by Liberty Buick. We have buildings. We could have naming rights for the library or other buildings. We could have contractors who teach, pay fees for the use of Sun City West facilities. We could negotiate fees from travel agencies that provide trips for our residents. We also should engage in renting our facilities to outside agencies. From expenses, we need to use volunteers where possible. We need to outsource where possible. We need to reclassify positions from employee to independent contractors to avoid the burdens of employment. We need to charge fees for the use of credit cards to pay dues. It was mentioned before, but it was never pursued. If we can get this association to pay your annual dues by check instead of by credit card, we can save $300,000. All we need is a public service announcement to us, and I think everybody will respond. And finally, we need a lean, efficient workforce. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Nick Turner.
Every year, minimum wage goes up, health care plans for the staff goes up, workers' compensation insurance goes up, the building insurance goes up, the liability insurance goes up, the janitorial supplies that we use in the restrooms goes up, the fertilizer for the golf courses goes up. I believe the premise that we can cut our annual dues and maintain the current service levels is wrong. The premise of the question is wrong. The question is, how are we going to restrict and minimize the rises in our annual dues? Dennis had just mentioned dynamic pricing on golf courses. Some of our surrounding communities actually do that. But if we're going to do dynamic pricing for golf courses, we need investment in the IT infrastructure that provides that capability, or we have to employ 4 or 5 more people in golf operations to manage it. We need to be investing in the right areas in order to make these good ideas happen. Credit card fees. Yes, we can reduce credit card fees, but that means more cash coming through the system in golf. That means more bad checks. There are costs, hidden costs that you don't think of. One of the things I've said is that I look a little bit deeper into what's going on and ask some questions a little bit below the higher level. If you make people pay for credit card fees, you're going to have more cash, more checks, more bad checks. That increases costs. I know we should care for those who are struggling, and we should help those who are struggling. And there are groups here within Sun City West that can do that. But this is a business that's people and power. Most of our expenditures are people and power. If you reduce power, what happens to the AC systems? What's the comfort like going to be in our buildings? If you decrease the people, who is going to maintain the golf courses?
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Jack Rizik.
Everybody's correct. You cannot eliminate the APF and you cannot eliminate dues. However, a couple of things that stick in my craw, especially about dues, is there's a lot of people that have rentals in this community. If you're a renter, your renters pay for dues. You also pay for dues twice. You're double dipping. I don't agree with that theory at all. You're double dipping because your renters pay, you obviously as the owner of the home, you have to buy it. But then if there's 2 people, you're going to get charged a second dues fee. APFs you can't continue to raise them at all, not much more, because if you're going to start restricting what houses get sold, there are over 367 houses on the market in this community right now. Why are they not selling? APFs are getting higher and higher. Like I said before, when I moved here 7 years ago, my APF was $3,500. Same house, $5,200. Where does it stop? The other thing I would like to see about dues, and that is we have some very elderly people living here who really don't use the facilities. If you're gonna charge them dues, don't charge them full boat. Charge them $100, charge them $150, but not $520. They don't use the facilities anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll be moving into our questions that come from our in-person audience. These submitted questions and responses will be done again by random draw. Maximum time for responses is up to 2 minutes. Follow-up on responses are accepted with responses of that type for up to 1 minute.
Is that clear or no? So the candidate gets 2 minutes to respond, whoever's name is drawn. And then you have the option to provide a rebuttal from your perspective or add to it however you choose. Okay?
Still not,
Pardon me?
still not clear.
Yeah, it is.
Does everybody get to chance?
Yeah.
Yes,
answer?
you have that opportunity.
And then after everybody speaks, you get it.
Now, one person responds to randomly drawn names. That person responds, they have 2 minutes to respond. Other people may choose to have a 30-second rebuttal or
1 minute.
1 minute
Yes.
to add what you wish. Okay, if you don't wish to contribute to that question, you do not need to. Okay? You can.
Yes, that would help. So. Oh, I'm sorry, John. Yes, John.
Not necessarily rebuttal, but I don't think most people understand the purpose of the APF. It isn't just to keep money in our capital improvement fund. When I work for cities, when we own the...
Okay, no, we're going to move into specific questions now.
Well, I thought we could rebut.
No, rebuttals are starting with this upcoming question.
Well,
Right, it's the ones that are coming up.
Yes, upcoming question, starting with the one I'm about to read.
They tried, huh?
All right, I already got it. All right. So here comes this will be our first question of that type. And the question is, how will you respond in situations when your opinion is different than the majority of the governing board?
Ask and answer.
It is a question for an individual to respond to and take an extra amount of time.
It's been asked and answered.
I'm right here, right, the very first one that you handed me. Okay, all right, fine. Well, then we'll skip that one by popular demand. Makes my job a little easier. If you're elected as a board member, what do you anticipate being a challenge for yourself? I'll repeat again. If you're elected as a board member, what do you anticipate being a challenge for yourself? And we'll start that with Ann Becknell.
Lucky me. I think that there's going to be a steep learning curve into some of the areas that I haven't personally been involved with. As an example, the sports pavilion, I haven't really been a bowler or a billiard player. But I think that overall, I don't see any objectionable areas of joining the board and becoming a board member. So aside from the steep learning curve on some of the current existing policies and regulations, I did attend a meeting with the charter clubs where they were going over our RNPs, and that document has now grown to be like the single largest document in the entire community. I think that's one that is going to take a little bit of hatchet to try to make sure that it comes back to size, and let the charter clubs have more of a say than the organization trying to drive what the clubs are going to do.
Thank you. Does anybody, any of the candidates have anything to add to that question? Any other responses? All right, Dennis.
I would like to say it's very difficult to write test questions and policies. So most instances, less is more. And I think I may have difficulty communicating difficult financial matters in a simplistic fashion so that other members of the board or committees may understand it. But I think I can do that.
Anybody else have anything to add? All right, in that case, we'll move on to the next question. And that question is, if factors such as inflation and minimum wage increase expenses, how would you adjust the budget? And we'll start that off with Lou Mancuso.
When we are looking at increases in inflation, we need to look at all of our expenses. How will the inflation impact us, whether it's a salary such as a minimum wage increase, maybe merit increases, or the health benefit costs or the workman comp costs. And then we have to look at our non-salary expenses. And we have to adjust our income accordingly. And as I indicated before, our income is generated by dues, by APF, golf fees, bowling fees, and other ancillary income. It's a fact of life that costs are going to go up, and we're going to need to increase our revenues, and I mentioned the revenue streams. But to the extent possible, we want to look at our expenses to see if we can optimize them. Is there any efficiency through information technology, through artificial intelligence, et cetera, where we can reduce our expenses and hopefully keep dues and APF increases to a minimum? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to say on this question? Okay.
I would.
Oh, okay. Dennis.
I think it's incumbent on board members to review the expenses incurred by the association. And the second largest expense we have is utilities. If you look at various planned communities and institutions around this area, they all have solar. I don't know if it would be cost effective, but I certainly think that as much money as we spend on utilities, we should invite companies to come make a presentation to us to see what the cost and benefit would be. There are additional items of expenses that we should review. Legal expenses. Last year, we incurred $223,000 in legal expenses, okay? We need to review that. We also need to look at our insurance coverage. Is what we pay for insurance appropriate for our association? All these things need to be reviewed, and we need to oversee management in the review. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, John Schalk.
I would look at outsourcing some of the jobs that we have, like the CC&Rs. Pora handled them at one time at a third of the cost that we have doing them in-house. Why don't we outsource that again and save some money? Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Turner.
We need to look at want versus need. I was looking at the proposed budget for the next financial year a little while ago, and I asked some questions at Budget and Finance yesterday, and I'm going to be emailing some more in, because there are some categories there which seem to be taking a, if you like, more than inflation-sized leap, and I want to understand why. At the moment, I haven't got answers to those questions. I agree with solar. I went to Sun City the other day, parked under a solar panel, had a nice cool car when I came afterwards, and Sun City were making some money on it. As for legal expenses, I note that I believe they are going down. Part of that those costs are associated with people who are behind on their dues, and we have to put liens on houses, and there's been a change in the law there. One of the side effects of that is we'll be spending less on legal expenses. And as for outsourcing, I believe that currently happens in areas where we are unable to employ staff, and that's another issue with salaries and wages. We can't even find staff at the current pay rates. How are we going to cut people's wages? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have something to say on that subject? All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Ann.
I would just add that in my experience, outsourcing, while it might look like a good short-term solution, is a much more expensive long-term solution, and you end up having much less control over how things are getting done. So I'm not so much in favor of outsourcing. Outsourcing specific jobs is one thing, but not outsourcing an entire program. I think that would be a mistake.
Thank you. Anybody else have something?
I've made a comment. May I make another?
Ruling on that? No, apparently. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Anybody else? Then we'll move on to the next question. And this question is, the governing board members are expected to serve on a committee. Which area of interest would you like to be involved in and why? And the first response on this will go to Jack Ruzick.
Thank you. I think I want to be on John's favorite committee, the Charter Club Committee. And the reason for that is I think we get a lot more exposure when we listen to what goes on within our chartered clubs. I'm on the softball board. I'm also on the posse, which of course has nothing to do with it. My wife is also in Rip and Sew and Meg, and they're concerned about space. And I think we have to look at want versus need, as Nick puts it, with regard to space and what goes on within these committees.
Thank you. Anybody else care to respond to this question? All right. Okay, John.
Well, I'm currently chair of the Chartered Clubs Committee, and I got kind of dumped in there when I was appointed to the board. Luckily, I had Nick to kind of guide me through some of it to start with. But I'd also be very interested in budget and finance and properties. So.
All right. Lou.
I would be interested in the treasurer position, budget and finance. I'd also be interested in becoming the president of the board. I think I have some leadership qualities, and I think I have several good ideas. For those of you that may not know this, typically governing board members cannot approach the general manager with questions. They have to go through the president. So there's that filtering process that sometimes your questions aren't answered, and I speak from experience from that perspective. So I would like to be the president and be more open to having governing board members asking the general manager questions. However, I'd like to be copied on it as the president. So there's some good organizational structure. Thank you.
Thank you. David.
I'm currently on the Charter Club Committee, and I was involved in the working group to revise the RRMPs. It's challenging, and my liaison with right now the card clubs, I really enjoyed that interaction, talking to those people, finding out what they want. And I think the other one, when you fill out your volunteer form, you put down the committees that you're interested in. The other one I was interested in was budget and finance. But I think I enjoy being on the Charter Club Committee, even though it was quite a time commitment. And I'm a glutton for punishment. Of course, I'm running for the board, you know. That proves my wife says I'm insane. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Dennis.
I served on the golf committee before, and I would really enjoy serving on it again for one purpose, and that's to generate more revenue for the association. If you generate more revenue and cut expenses, you can reduce dues. I think my skill set is also related to budget and finance. The general manager was kind enough to provide me with the budgeted revenues and expenses and the actual revenues and expenses over the last 4 fiscal years. It's very interesting to note that there was $3,696,165 more revenue or net income in the actual data in the actual year than was budgeted. And what's that tell you? That perhaps dues could be a little less.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to comment on this question? All right then. Moving on then. Our next question is, are you familiar with and have you reviewed the most recent RRMPs? And we are going to start that with Nick Turner.
For those of you who do not know why there is laughter, it's because I chaired the working group that just recently reviewed them. So over the last 4 or 5 months, I must have read them about 50 times. So yes, I'm very familiar with those RRMPs. I will add a biased comment is, yes, they are very long. Yes, they are involved, and yes, there are parts in there that are tedious. But they are as they are for a reason, and it's not to govern what clubs do largely. It's not to stop the day-to-day activities of the clubs. It's not to stop you enjoying yourselves here. It's not to reduce the number of clubs. It's to make sure that our clubs remain financially solvent, well managed, well run, available to all of their members as much as possible, and to make sure that we're not actually breaking community rules and policies in the way those clubs actually choose to run themselves. That's the reason. A lot of those rules are in there because it's correcting past bad behavior, and it's to stop other clubs making mistakes in the future. That's why it's there. It's not there because we're a bunch of controlling people who want things run a certain way. It's there to make sure that the clubs can run themselves safely, securely, be financially sound, have proper controls in place over spending. Those are what the rules are there for, to make sure you don't break the tax laws. Those are what they're for. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to comment on this? And I have a feeling they will. John?
Just a quick comment as chair of the Chartered Clubs Committee. Not everyone's happy with RRMPs. No one's ever always happy with the RRMPs. But it's an annual requirement of the Chartered Clubs Committee to review the RRMPs. So if there's any changes people would like to see or comments they have, I would encourage them to send it to the Chartered Clubs Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
As another member of the working group, I'm familiar with them as well. But I was happy about the response we got. We sent out emails on several occasions to all the presidents of all the charter clubs, and we got back good suggestions, and we were able to modify the RRMPs to some degree to help accommodate their requests, and we did not take their suggestions lightly. We delved into them, but we had to make sure that those requests still were within the rules that we have to live by, either tax codes or policy or bylaws. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ann?
I'm familiar with the RRMPs, of course, and I think that the document, while I respect the work that has gone into it and the amount of time and labor that you all have spent building and trying to create this document, I think in some situations it's far too specific, and it's not always what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So we cannot treat the entire community under one set of RRMPs. We need to have a framework that sets the basic framework for what the Sun City West residents want to see, and then the individual clubs need to be given some leeway as to how they want to handle specific events. We don't have to build it all into one giant document.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment?
From
Dennis.
a practical standpoint, what chartered club is going to look at RRMPs for chartered clubs that's that thick?
Yeah.
Okay? It's an impediment to achieving what they need to achieve. And I believe in self-governance. And what was said is some of the rules were enacted because other clubs didn't follow the rules. Well, that's managing by exception. And you deal with people that don't do things right on a case by case. You don't have to legislate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add to this? All right. Our next question reads, volunteerism has been decreasing. Do you have any plans or ideas to increase volunteerism in Sun City West? And we'll start this off with Jack Ruzick.
That's funny, because that's one of the things that I'm very passionate about. I think we could reduce our employee expense from 63 probably down to 50 if we utilize volunteers. If you go to just about any golf course outside of this town, the clubhouses, the people inside that take your reservation, the players' assistants that are out on the field, they're all volunteers. And what do they do it for? The simple fact that they get to go play golf for nothing. And you know what? I'll trade golf for nothing for an employee making dollars that cost this community money. You have a lot of turnover, and that increases all kinds of costs. Your unemployment fees are higher because of the amount of turnover you have. And if you get rid of that and go to volunteerism, you don't have a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Lou?
I agree wholeheartedly with Jack. We have an asset which we can provide people that doesn't cost us anything, and that is the all-play card. So approximately 25, maybe a little better than that, percentage of our population, of our residents, play golf. To the extent that you can use that all-play card as a retribution, or as a salary, if you will, then it really doesn't cost the association anything. These people are going to go out and play golf anyway. So what you have is a benefit which you can, God bless, a benefit which you can use that has no cost to the association, yet could provide a replacement for a salary. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any additional comments? Ann?
I've been on several different charter clubs, and it's hard enough to get volunteers for the positions of president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. I can't imagine trying to get someone to volunteer and be on the governing board. That would be crazy, right? I mean, that's my husband likes to remind me that I'm retired, and he has to remind me every day. But volunteering is fantastic, but I don't think you can ask people to volunteer for jobs that require them to have specific times, dates, and hours, and that they're actually being managed by someone. That's a job.
Thank you. Any other comments from the candidates? Dennis?
I hate to rain on their parade, but there are tax implications when you have a person volunteering and they get a benefit. Okay, it really complicates things. And it you know, but for the grace of God, if IRS comes in, there's issues. Now, I will say, the golf director this past summer hired somebody part-time to run the green team. It was previously run by a volunteer. The golf director admitted that he did not ask the golf groups if there was a willing volunteer to run the green team. And I understand a similar thing occurred with the theater group. There had been a volunteer who just said, you know, my time is done, and they did not seek another volunteer before they went ahead and hired somebody. We're a community of volunteers. My goodness.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else on the candidates? All right.
If I understood the question right, it was what that volunteering is decreasing in general with the new generations and stuff, and what can we do about changing that? I see that as a real problem. The children and grandchildren are not volunteering, and it's going to be quite a problem for this. If there are the volunteer jobs that there are now on all these committees and everything else, if there's fewer and fewer volunteers, the only thing I could think of is teach your children and grandchildren that it's a good thing, but I just see it as a problem, and I don't really have a solution for the people coming up that don't volunteer.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to add? All right, then we will move on to the next question. How do you feel about outside residents using Sun City West facilities? And John Schalk, will start with you on that.
We can have guests come and attend our clubs as long as they're with a club member. But outside residents should not become members of clubs. It's just that simple. But attending as a guest, that already is in existence in the bylaws.
Thank you. Any candidate wish to speak? Ann?
I guess I heard the question wrong. Would you read the question again?
Certainly. How do you feel about outside residents using Sun City West facilities?
Okay, so it's not just we're letting them join a club, it's letting them come and use the facilities, which, again, if done properly, could become an income-producing form of revenue for Sun City West. As Sandra mentioned, there's some work to be done, some building blocks have to be put in place, but the pickleball court is a great example. So I don't think we're allowing them to join a club. They're coming to use a facility, and they're going to pay a fee for that, which becomes an income-producing revenue.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, the overriding principle is that the facilities here are for the use of the members and their occasionally invited guest. So, our families can come and visit. If it's not a guest, it's somebody who doesn't live here and they're not a guest coming in and paying. We already see that in golf, and we already see that in bowling, and that provides us with some revenue in those areas. The other issue that often comes up, and we notice this with clubs as well, of course, is tournaments. We have non-residents come in to play in tournaments, and I think that should continue. I think that needs to be looked at, managed, and controlled, just to make sure that we're not overusing or damaging our facilities by doing that with people who are not perhaps contributing as much. But I think the current system at the moment, I think, is balanced and seems to be working well. I will say that.
Thank you. Dennis?
Well, at one time, we did have outside people here. We had commingling with the softball clubs, and we shared with Sun City. And we voted to discontinue that. And I looked at the history, and it was initially established because Sun City residents were getting older, and they needed us. Well, now we are getting older, and we need Sun City, but because we've rejected commingling, they don't want anything to do with us. Something worked, but we fixed it. And unfortunately, they are not willing to now engage with us at a time when we sorely need them. There's also the issue of reciprocity, which allows outside people in here.
Thank you. Jack?
Yeah, Dennis, I agree with you 100%. We need more reciprocity. We have a lot of, especially in softball, because I'm on the softball team and the committee. As long as we utilize our facilities and their facilities, and we don't overextend one side or the other, reciprocity is a great thing. As far as I'm concerned, commingling was a great thing. That just, for some reason, they didn't want to continue doing that, and whom, I have no idea, but I sure wish we could go back to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? John?
We recently had an accommodation request by the tennis club because they have tournaments with, I think, 5 or 6, 7 other communities. but it broke down because we couldn't get reciprocity agreements from many of those communities. So we did something through operations that accommodated them being able to have that particular tournament. And, you know, we used to have events here, still have events here, where outside people came in and bought up all the tickets. They went online and they got the tickets, and the people from Sun City West weren't able to attend because there weren't any tickets left. Well, they changed that because of the outcry from the people that live here. You can't be an outside person and purchase tickets for our events anymore. And we're still filling our events, so I think that's a good thing.
Thank you. David?
As long as they come and they pay in one form or another, reciprocity, you use their facilities, they use ours. But also, as long as they're not displacing the members from being able to use those same facilities. So there has to be scheduling or other, and allow for the prime time that our residents want to use those facilities to make sure those are available. And don't get me started on commingling.
Thank you. Sandra?
I agree with what David's saying. I've been a member of a couple clubs that there's too many people for the space that is there. And I don't think reciprocity is going to fit straight across the board anywhere. I think sports teams are one thing, but I think, you know, you've got in some clubs equipment that people need to be trained on before they can use. So personally, I think we need to look at that with a bigger depth.
Thank you. Anyone else on the panel? Lou?
Well, first of all, we have to look at all the clubs. You have social clubs, you have sports clubs, and you have craft clubs. Basically, they're the three types of clubs we have in our association. So when you're talking about outside people, probably the craft clubs should be a no-no unless they're a guest of a member, certainly not to be able to use the expensive equipment. And so now you're looking at sports clubs. I think sports clubs make sense to have commingling and have other non-residents participate if there's reciprocity. And then, of course, you have the social clubs, such as card clubs and that sort of thing. Should they be able to invite outside people? I think the Bridge Club at one time was a charter club. I don't believe they are anymore. And people came in and paid a fee to be able to play bridge. So, once again, I think there needs to be some policy around it, but I think it's applicable in certain cases. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything else to add on this? All right, then. Our next question is, what else can be done to share information other than SCW Online, The Independent, and the Rec Center News? And we're going to start that with Sandra.
One of the things that, Water Fitness has about 500 people. They're out here at R.H. Johnson at 9 a.m., 5 days a week. It's pretty difficult to communicate or to meet the deadlines to only depend on those forms of communication. We encourage a person to join the Water Fitness Facebook group. So it's a quick, hey, I can't monitor today. Can anybody else monitor? So that's been very helpful in a couple of clubs that I've found.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ann?
Several of the clubs that I've belonged to, in order to get news out to our membership faster and better, if you will, is that they've created their own MailChimp database, which is free to a certain limit if you have a small club, and a small price if it's over a certain number. So I think that each club could be talked to. Maybe they don't have the technology expertise at the club. I know every club I join, the first job I get is I become their tech support. So, I've set this up for many, many clubs, and I think it's a very worthwhile way for the clubs to communicate their information, their advice quickly to their membership.
Thank you. Dennis, I think you responded already on this? You did not? Okay, thank you. Dennis?
Has anybody heard about Buzz About Town? Thank you.
Oh, okay. Sandra, you've already spoken.
Dang it.
Lou, you've already spoken on this, I believe, as well. You did not? All right, thank you. Lou?
Please.
It's hard to, well, I apologize.
No. I think it's the 80-20 rule. I'm going to say there's probably about 80% of our residents that think, hey, listen, life's good, I'm playing golf, I'm in the clubs, things are great. You know what? I read The Independent and, possibly glean some information. Absent getting these people and holding them by the ear and make them listen, I think it's the 80-20 rule. About 80% of the people are just so happy with the way things are, they could care less. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's certainly extremely difficult to get out more information to these people because they don't want to hear it.
Thank you. Nick?
My, if you like, my caution, my warning to everybody is beware of the source of information that you're getting, especially on social media. What is reported as fact may in fact be rumor and may in fact be incorrect. So just be careful of the sources that you listen to and be careful who you trust or don't trust for that information. Personally, I go to several sources. I see something on Buzz, I think, that doesn't sound right. So I start talking to people, finding out whether it is in fact right or not right. So just be careful, use multiple sources, and also think things through. Like, if that statement were correct, then this means something else. Like Sun City and softball and commingling. Do you want a team which represents Sun City West to consist of people who don't live here? Because that's the implication of commingling. And also,
Thank you. Jack?
Thank you. Commingling in softball was probably a little different than most places. The only time we really utilized commingling was if we had a team that came up short of players and we still wanted to play the game. If anybody from Sun City West wanted to go play for Sun City, for that particular day, that particular game, it was allowed. Now it's not. So then we went to reciprocity. So that at least they had teams, but the commingling part of it was on an absolute need basis to continue with whatever program we were playing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to add? All right. Our next question is, what are your views on PORA? And we will start that with John Chatton.
Thanks a lot. PORA is having a really rough time. As a matter of fact, they will be presenting to our governing board here, I believe, next week. And we'll hear what they have come up with for potential solutions. Nobody but PORA represents this community with other governmental agencies. That's something that we need. Now, we can argue whether PORA needs to do it or another entity could do that, but that's a different discussion. I think most people would agree that what PORA does is necessary to our community. I think there's going to be a lot of potential changes in the future, but like I said, we'll know a whole lot more when their president presents to the board next week. We'll know what they're requesting of the Sun City West Board and how we may be able to help, or what their answer may be. So it's kind of a work in progress.
Thank you. Any other comments? Nick, Lou.
Thank you. Personally, I think PORA is definitely needed. They're our governmental representative. They have accomplished so many things for our community as far as traffic lights go, The road going from Bell Road to the 303 was supposed to abut Sun City West, but through PORA, they moved it out so that there's less noise. If I were king and I owned Rec Center publications, I would have in every one of those publications the benefits that PORA provides and a mechanism, at least a request from residents to join PORA. There's a definite need. I think it's all about making the community aware of all those benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann?
I think that PORA has done some really fantastic things for our community over the years. I think the problem that PORA has is they don't have a very good community outreach. Not very many people know who they are, what they do, what they save them year over year, and it's quite sad. And I think what needs to happen for PORA is that we need to help them come together and create a stronger outreach program, marketing program, so that people actually understand who they are, what they do, and what they can do for the community, and encourage participation.
Thank you. David?
I want to echo what she said. My wife and I have been members of PORA the whole time, and I had no idea they were in financial trouble until they came to the Charter Club Committee. And they do so much, and if they can go back and give us the numbers about the amount of money that they've saved us over the years by keeping our utility rates down and the other governmental intercessions that they have done with the legislature and things. They're a wonderful organization. They just need to let all the people know what they do. So.
Thank you. Dennis?
Unfortunately, Del Webb died before Sun City West was formed, because in Sun City, Del Webb made joining their version of PORA mandatory. It's not here. So our membership went from 17,000 to its current total of 4,000. In a business vernacular, there's a real question right now if PORA is a going concern. One thing I want to mention, they are a 501c4 just like us. And if we change our bylaws, perhaps they could become a branch of the recreation centers of Sun City West.
Thank you. Nick?
PORA does wonderful work, and if PORA ceases to exist, we'll have to invent something to replace it, because that work must continue. From my understanding of the legal situation is that we cannot collect dues on behalf of PORA. There is law and precedent that stops us from doing that, so they are to a certain extent on their own. We can do what we can to help them, but the recreation centres cannot take your money and give it to PORA, unfortunately. If something happens and PORA goes away, we may end up with another standing committee, which is a government relations committee. We may have to have staff that manage that and help us coordinate those volunteers who are working with the government, and that's an additional cost to us. So as a community, I think the best and easiest way out of this problem is join PORA. It's only $15 or $25, depending on how many are in your household. So go and join PORA. They're on Camino del Sol, and I'm sure they'll take your checks readily. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to say? All right. Next question is, how would you go about building unity on our governing board and in the community? And we will start that one with Dave Bennett.
I think they need to live the be kind stickers that we have. They can have disagreements, but they need to get along. They need to not hold grudges, past grudges, or and treat each other civilly, especially in public, and have lines of communications open. And even if somebody disagrees with you, as we were asked, you still have to get along with the majority and, I think, present a united front. But there needs to be more unity by people listening and speaking their minds and coming to a consensus.
Thank you. Anyone have anything to ask? Nick?
I think we need more honesty and more good faith debate. I'm personally sick of seeing comments publicly in the newspapers, on social media, from people who are putting forward a narrative that is not true because they don't like certain people or groups within Sun City West. Let's have some honesty, let's have a good faith debate. Let's use facts, let's use evidence. You know, let's come together and agree that we're going to be open with each other, we're going to be honest with each other, and we don't have hidden agendas, and we're not trying to undermine any individual or group simply because for some reason we don't like what they said. Let's work together, let's be honest, let's be truthful, but good faith. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to give you facts that I believe to be true. If they're not true, I might change my mind. I don't see a lot of that in Sun City West on social media or in letters. But let's have a good faith, open and honest debate and
Thank
come
you.
together.
Anyone else? Dennis?
There is a natural tension between the board and management, because sometimes the board's going to make decisions that management is not happy about. And all decisions will be data-driven. And recently, watching the budget and finance budget proposal, some conclusions were made, and perhaps different conclusions would be made if the appropriate data was provided. And I would hope that both sides would be open to hearing facts.
Thank you. John?
Nobody sitting here or anybody on the board has all the answers. And when you sit down as a group and you're well aware that there's some division along the board for certain issues, in the past I used a tool called StrengthsFinder. And I don't know if other people who were administering or running a business use that, but it determines what your top strengths are. The basis for that is if you are operating in a strength that you have, you do that job 10 times better than doing a job that isn't one of your strengths. And when the entire council or board takes something like that, they find out that, oh, he or she, oh, we should defer to them on some of these decisions because that's their strength. And I have found in the past that that really works to bring a board or a council together, make it much more cohesive.
Thank you. Jack?
I think we have to have a method where we go out and get our members' opinions. A lot of times the board makes up their own mind and they sit and bicker with one another or don't get along at all on certain subjects, which is natural. But you're right, we all have to respect each other's opinions. More importantly, we have to respect our members' opinions. And we have to find a conduit to get out there, get our members' opinions, and then bring that back so that the board can act on those.
Thank you. Sandra?
You know, I think it's important that everyone realize where their lane is and be careful not to cross that. There was a saying that I used to hear a lot that was, operations do the how. That's what they're trained for, blah, blah, blah. And boards approve policy. And that's what, as soon as you start, I think, crossing those, people are not going to want to work for the rec system, and you just have to be very careful.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, then. We'll move on to the next question. This question is, 3 generations currently coexist in Sun City West. How do you think the concerns and needs of each generation can be met? And we'll start this off with Dennis.
I think that is going to be something that is dealt with in the strategic plan. You know, we are all seniors. Everybody that lives here, or at least, I shouldn't say that, most of the people that live here are 55 and over. And we're going to be living here probably 20, 30 years. And we have the ability to only develop a limited amount of space. We have 7 golf courses, 4 recreation centers, chartered clubs, and a softball field, and we have 3 acres behind the softball field that can be developed. How that's done may be the product of something that's discussed in the strategic plan.
Thank you. Ann?
As a real-life example in dealing with multi-generations, I was the president of Lady Putters, and the original group was formed where they wear all white shirts, shorts, you know, hats, everything had to be all white, and you had a little red apron. And at some point, I noticed that our membership was sort of dropping, and we weren't really gaining like I thought we should. And so when we took it out to people to find out why they didn't want to join Lady Putters, it's because they didn't want to wear the uniform. And so we took that to the membership, and we took it to an open vote where everybody came to a luncheon and they all voted as to whether we should keep the whites or not. And we voted as a group not to keep the whites by a 90-10 kind of margin. As a result, the membership in Lady Putters grew substantially over the next several months. So I think that's an idea that people have to look at when they're looking at their clubs. Is this going to make my club grow and be more beneficial?
Thank you. John Schalk.
As I said in my opening statement, that the changing demographic of Sun City West needs could be different than what we have now. From the older people that live here to the younger people coming in. Of course, younger will probably be more active with tennis, pickleball, bowling, softball, where the older generation may not be as active. So that's why you've seen over the years, we've built more pickleball courts because the need was there. And you never know what the need is in the future as the younger people come in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nick?
It goes back to the point that myself and others have made about investment in technology and flexibility. We need computer systems that are going to allow us to adapt as the needs of the residents change, as younger generations come in who are more tech savvy. Mind you, Secretary of the Contract Bridge Club, the monitor who scans people's cards into Club Track when they arrive is 97, and she's ably assisted by a 100-year-old. So age is not necessarily a barrier to technology and adapting in technology, but I wonder about somebody who's 10 years younger than me coming into the community and saying, well, what do you mean I can't look at an app and see whether the running machine is free at Beardsley? Mm-hmm. You know, that kind of technology is the way we need to be thinking so that we can accommodate those generations as they age. At the moment, I think we're a little bit behind, but we need to make sure that we can keep going into the future and adapt as we need to.
Thank you. John Shatton.
I would agree with Nick, and the board has been looking at these issues, and that has been precipitated a couple things. Within the last 6 months, we have decided that we absolutely have to have a strategic planning process, and we have hired a consultant, and our first big meeting is coming up here within the next week or so, and that eventually will involve the entire community, and they'll be looking for input from the entire community. And the other thing that we looked at, realizing that the younger people, I don't have my phone, they live on their phone. They don't have laptops, printers, they don't have all this other stuff. So, and our technology is so far behind. So what did we do? We decided we can't wait for another budget cycle. We hired an IT director. And Kyle is already suggesting some changes and looking at how we can make it more user-friendly especially for the new generation coming in. So I think strategic planning process is going to be key to what we do going down the road.
Thank you. Lou?
Well, John, I couldn't agree with you more. It's all really about planning. You know, activities need to be age relevant, if you will. As John said, the younger people, they're not going to want to sit around, but, you know, maybe we need card clubs for the older folks to come in, and I'll be in that category shortly, so that's a little scary. But anyway, to the board's credit, the B&F committee is considering $300,000 in the next budget cycle to start looking at IT. Kyle's doing a good job. We need to go out, we need to determine, is there a COTS application, a commercial off-the-shelf solution, or do we need to customize it? So I think the association is going in the right direction, and I don't think we can ask much more than that. We could ask them to accelerate it, but at least the problem has been identified, and I believe funding is being considered, not approved, but considered at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to add? All right. Our next question is, do you believe homes that are retitled after the death of a spouse should be charged another asset preservation fee? And we'll start with Sandra on that.
No, I do not on something like that. I've experienced enough people around that perhaps their spouse dies and suddenly they have one Social Security check. And sure, we need money to run, but I don't think that's the way to do it.
Thank you. All right, Jack.
There it goes. I couldn't agree with her more. You've paid it once, you still live in the house, just because your spouse died or something happened and they left, you should not be charged again. You've already paid it.
Thank you. David.
I think the state of Arizona passed legislation where that's no longer if a relative inherits the house, they cannot be charged another APF fee like what had happened in the past.
Thank you. Dennis?
They may be charged, but they will get a refund.
Nick?
I'm not saying this for any reasons of any sympathy because it was several years ago. My wife passed away, my house was retitled, I was not charged an asset fee. Again, it's a question of the premise of the question. I'm not certain that it's actually happening. And there are certain circumstances where a house is passed to children for no financial consideration. We cannot charge an asset fee because the law has been changed on that. So the number of, if you like, the number of opportunities to charge an asset preservation fee, in fact, have been reduced, not increased.
Thank you. Anyone else have something to add on that? All right. The next question is, since we have limited seating at Lizard Acres on band or music night, should we be charging non-residents an entrance fee so residents have seating preference? And we'll start that with Nick Turner.
Space is limited there, and the recent approval of spending to invest in Lizard Acres is in fact not going to increase the amount of seating at all, which is one of the reasons why I opposed it. But the premise is that we all pay for the facilities, and again, it's occasionally invited guests. The issue is that the bowling alley is open to the public can bowl there, the public can use the cafe. I would like to see some sort of a restriction. I don't know how you would manage it, because if you charge outsiders a fee, they'll come along and they'll pay $5 to see the great band, and they'll go in and they'll sit down anyway. So we get more revenue, but it doesn't free up seats for residents. I think the only way that you could manage that effectively is through some sort of ticketing, and again, we're adding cost if you start doing that. Or we have personnel at the door checking people's rec cards when they come in, which means you need more people. So again, you're going to be adding cost. So, you know, is the problem worthy of adding additional cost to all of our residents? Or are we willing to incur that cost in order to get more seats for residents in Lizard Acres?
Thank you. Anyone else have something to comment on that question? Lou?
I think it's data-driven. You know, what's the magnitude of the problem? I agree with Nick. You know, is it 10 people that aren't residents or in there? You know, is it 60% of the people are non-residents? So once again, you got to get the data to try to understand how significant the problem is. And then you determine whether or not cost benefit analysis. The whole, you know, when you decide to go buy a can of peas, it's a cost benefit analysis. You look at Leisure and you look at Kroger and you go, you know, are these peas better? So everything's a cost benefit analysis. We got to get the data. And once you get the data, you can make a reasonable effort to solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack?
It doesn't want to work. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. The problem I have is, how often does this really happen? Is it an every night occurrence? Is it a once a month occurrence? Is it when a certain band shows up occurrence? You could incur a lot of extra expense for one night a month. And I think that is absolutely ludicrous. Maybe when our new IT manager gets everything up to speed, they can put a scanner in for your rec card, and that'll take care of that. But until then, I don't see any solution, and I don't think it's that big a problem.
John Chatton.
I'm not sure what the trade-off is either, and the data would certainly reveal a lot of answers. A night you have a band, maybe you want to restrict it to just local residents, but the rest of the week, you walk by there may be 6 people in there, 8 people, 10 people. And if there are people from other communities that have come here to bowl and want to walk in there and get a beer, come on in. We would like that revenue. So it really needs to be studied.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add? All right, well, if that's the case, that will end the questions for this portion, and we will move now to closing speeches. The candidates will have 1.5 minutes to prepare or to speak at that point. And again, we'll be reminding you at the 30-second mark. And for this, we will be starting with Ann Becknell.
Great. Well, it's been a fun morning listening to all the questions and the answers, and I've admired many of the responses from my fellow candidates here on the board. Very, very, very smart, very well thought out. I'm running for the Sun City West Governing Board to help create a more harmonious and forward-looking view of our resources and our finances to ensure that we continue to maintain the excellent standards we have enjoyed in the past and safeguard the future growth of Sun City West. I plan to accomplish this through solidarity, cooperation, mutual trust, and to continue to contribute to an improved quality of life for everybody in Sun City West. I believe in volunteerism to the nth degree, and I think that everyone should volunteer. I remember when I first moved here, my mother literally handed me the kitchen towel, and I said, "What's that for?" She goes, now it's your turn to volunteer. And that was just kind of her way of passing the torch. But it's true. Everyone needs to take their seat in the chair and volunteer and do what they can to help the community. So I hope that I'll get your vote. I look forward to being on the governing board and working with this fine group. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra.
Sun City West continues to be in the top 5 of retirement areas throughout the United States. I mean, that's quite an honor because it is quite a list. So part of what I want to do is to preserve Sun City West for what it is and what it was intended to be, and to protect it. I don't have all the answers. I'm not coming with an agenda or this is what I think or that, but I'm always willing to learn. I'm always willing to listen. I show up. I just would appreciate your vote and your patience once I'm voted in. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis?
I want to thank all the candidates for stepping forward to run for the governing board. I hope each candidate has articulated how his or her skills will enhance this association. As I have mentioned during this forum, my education, experience, and professional certifications make me a viable board member. My objectives for the association is to ensure efficiency, ensure fiscal soundness, ensure transparency, and finally, listen to residents concerning all matters facing the association so that we can preserve what we have in Sun City West. In the final analysis, we are all neighbors. If I earn your vote and am elected, I pledge to work with the other board members to achieve all goals to preserve this institution. I'm happy to stay after the forum to answer any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you. John Schalk?
I believe that the rec center is responsible for the security and safety of all the members at the clubs. Some of you know, recently, again, we've had a break-in at one of the clubs. The agricultural club was broken into and items were stolen, some significant value. The agriculture club is the garden club. Most of the gardens are covered with the chicken wire, and they cut into the chicken wire and stole rototillers and hand tools, which adds up. Nothing's been done to secure that facility because it happens again and again. Something can be done, but it hasn't. It hasn't been addressed, hasn't even been talked about, which is a sad event. So more security, I think, for the clubs is something that should be talked about. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou?
First of all, I want to thank everybody for attending the forum so you can become informed of each of the candidates' visions, goals, qualifications. I want to thank Ron, Merle, and my friend Luann for doing all the work, the election committee. My goals are simple. I just want to ensure we are spending association funds as I would my own money. So when I, once again, as a fiscal person, when I look at an organization, the first thing I look at is expenses. What category of expenses are the greatest? And of course, those are the ones you're going to, excuse me, analyze first. And in our particular case, it's wages, salaries, and benefits. So I think we really need to take a look at that under the microscope to see if there's anywhere there's duplicity of operations. Maybe we can reduce staff, and maybe not. But the analysis needs to be done. It's got to be, the decisions need to be done based on data. We need to get data, and we need to understand what each position does. And it's very possible that there doesn't need to be any increases or decreases, but the analysis needs to be done. In closing, I'm Lou Mancuso. I'm a fiscal conservative, and I'm asking for your vote so I can represent you on the governing board. I also ask that you look at the other candidates and believe as I do, and vote for those that believe as I do for fiscal conservatism.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick?
The only reason I got applause is he held up the sign, right?
I'd like to thank the election committee too, and I'd also like to thank you who are still here, and those of you who are still watching online. I thank you for your perseverance. Yeah, I too agree that we need to look at the staffing levels and what we pay them. And would you believe it, people are already doing that. We pay 12% below the average for people in comparable jobs. So where are we going to save money on cutting salaries? Our HR department has 0.67 people per 100 employees. Professional people working in HR tell you that you should have 1.7. We're running with 0.67. We're running lean and mean already. So where are the savings going to come in that area? Golf course maintenance and staffing. The USGA says somebody who is on a low-staffed golf course has 11 to 13 people. On a high-staffed golf course, they have 15 to 18. We have 12. We're at the low end. So where are the savings going to come in that area? Where are we going to find these savings? Lots of people tell us they're going to save money. Where is it going to come from? I wish people would get specific. I know that I've put in the time and I'm prepared for doing this job. We need board members whose views are actually based on reality. If you elect someone who's promising things that are not going to be deliverable, you're going to be upset with them. Let's have some reality. Let's have some honest discussion. Let's have some open communication.
Thank you. Jack?
You got applause too, Nick.
Yeah.
I also believe in volunteerism. I was in business for 44 years, and when I retired in 2009, the first thing I did was volunteer in the community I lived for those people that supported me for the 44 years I was in business. I still believe in that theory. I still believe that people need to volunteer to make their communities safe, vibrant, and have a lot of fun without a lot of people getting in trouble. I think we also need, maybe not, as Nick says, to curb our, we need to, I don't know if we can curb our costs. What I think we need to do is watch the inflation side of it and the dues increases and the APF problem. It's going to get to a point where you're not going to have anybody buying houses here. And you're going to have a lot of houses. You do already, 367 houses on the market. You got to continue to do that sort of thing and keep your people volunteering. And just, if I'm lucky enough, I would really appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John?
First of all, I want to thank the election committee for their hard work in guiding this year's election process. For me, it's been a rewarding experience, and I've appreciated learning more about my fellow candidates. I sincerely hope this forum has given you some insight into how each of us could contribute to the board. We each have our unique experiences and gifts. We all love this community and have our personal visions for the future of Sun City West. Now it's up to our residents to decide which of those visions and talents are needed most at this time in our board's history. My wife and I are blessed to be part of this community. It is a great place to live, play, and serve. And I look forward to the opportunity to continue to serve as a director on the Sun City West Recreation Board. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
I want to also thank the election committee and also for the other people that are running for the volunteering, because this isn't an easy process, and this job is going to entail lots of time and dedication. And I want to actually thank the volunteers that have made in the past, from the past boards, that have made this community one of the best communities of this type in the country. I plan to try to gather data mostly from the residents, get their input, their views, but we also need data on space utilization from the clubs and the facilities, and integrate that into the master and strategic plan so we know where we're going, so we know how to spend the money that's necessary, not, needs versus wants, as people have said. And I just want to thank the people that are here, that are interested. It's sad sometimes to see some of the committees that I attend meetings and how few people from the community are involved and how many ask questions online. So I hope that we can do more to get the owner members involved, and I would appreciate your vote, and if you have any questions about where I stand or in more detail, I will stick around afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll turn this back over to Luann.
I've been sitting too long, so I had to use the rail. First of all, I would sincerely like to thank everyone that helped today. Special thanks goes out to my partner there, Marshall. I think timing is one of the hardest tasks there is, and you may have noticed that there was a lot of kicking and hitting going on between the two of us. So I hope the timing was correct. Of course, I would also like to thank Ron and Merle. They both had very large jobs today. I would like to thank and I think every one of our candidates deserves a huge round of applause. Thank you, candidates. And you know what, audience? I think you deserve a special thank you too. Especially those that stuck it to the end. Also want to remind you that we have a meet and greet coming up on March 18th. That'll be over at Palm Ridge from 6 to 8:30. And that'll be your opportunity to speak with the candidates up close and personal. You can ask them any question you want, but that's usually well attended. So I hope we have folks turn out for that, because that way you can ask even more questions. We also encourage you to sign up for online voting. You can sign up from now till, well, it's been open for a while, but till March 17th, and you can find details on that on the Sun City West website. Online voting opens on March 20th. And it goes through till the 27th. So March 20th opens online voting. And then, of course, our big day, March 31st, in-person voting. So if you don't get to online vote, come on out for in-person voting. And that's the same day, I believe, our Spring Fest was changed to March 5th, one of the events, I believe. Was it? Well, even if it wasn't, you'll still have time to come out for online voting, even if you're getting ready for Spring Fest. And online voting, in-person voting will be at our Data Resource Center. And that's all we have for, oh, no, wait a minute. I got to add this. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to add it anyway. Between now and the meet and greet, I am going to give the candidates some homework. I want the candidates to find out the real story of APFs, since there seems to be a lot of confusion on that in the community. So there you go. There's some homework for you. How about that? And finally, I am so proud because we are not going over time. So thank you so much to everyone, and hope to see you at the meet and greet.